G'day, friends and fans. Welcome to Writing Corner, myths and realities about writing. Before I begin, I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the book, The ProWritingAid, book 1 of the Empire of Elves, Power Games book 2, recently rated 5-star, available, and of course, Into the Elves Bound, book 3 of the Empire of Elves, with book 4 on its way. Of course, it's been self-published and self-financed. I'm sponsored by you, the viewing audience. I tried crowdfunding. I've tried lots of things. So please help me make a living, and I'll keep bringing. If you want higher quality videos, you want better, you got to pay for it. Okay, you don't pay, you get the bottom dollar. You learnt this with AAA games. You learnt this. Why do you keep needing to learn the same lesson over and over again? I really wish you just tip jars and stuff like that. They're things in the past, okay? People have taken it away. The credit card companies, they're really nailing people to the wall. It's to make a living. So, oh, sorry. I'll try not to be bitter, but it's just a reality that everything has become pay to win, whether Amazon are screwing people over. And the reality is I may have to just go self-published, fully self-published, and delete all my other listings. I don't know yet, because the cost, the expense, the drama, the advertising, the expectations. I get it. You want the best, but if you want the best, you have to pay for it. That's the reality. So please support the channel, help me grow, help me make a living. It's not hard. It's not a chore. Join a growing community, and let's make it a community, shall we? And if now, myths and realities. When it comes to writing, you're going to be told a lot of myths, okay? And one of the biggest myths is, well, you have to go to university, you have to be a journalist, you have to do your time, you have to put in you have to and we see this even today. Journalists all become best-selling writers. But we all know the game is rigged against us. 2, you have to be a big name to write. That's the problem. Like Stephen King, school teacher, did his time, put in his dues, so to speak. Or you have to do something famous like a journalist. That ain't true. Now, it's true that most of the big writers are famous and but Stephen King was a teacher. He was struggling to pay his bills when he wrote his first novel. He only made it big because he chose horror because, well, as it turned out, he was good at it, but he chose it because it was the least amount of writers. He thought he would stand out, and it turned out he was right. But these days, every genre is full. Every genre, even if you're original and stand out, so don't think you have to be a big name, or you have to go to university, or you have to become a journalist first, or you have to pay your dues, as they keep telling newcomers. It's all gatekeeping. Avoid the gatekeepers. Avoid the mentor who's going to put his arm around your shoulder, while he reaches into your pocket. Now, biggest myth is if your friends like it, so will the publishers. I'm sorry. The publishers, they have a criteria. And if you don't know it, well, you don't know it. That's the problem. You got to guess what the publishers want. Now, if you want real feedback, you either join a writers group or put your book out there for on one of the many platforms. Fanzines was sorry, not fanzines. That's long gone. Geez, I can only think of the ones that are now gone. I'm trying to think of the ones that are still operating. You know the ones like Writers Cafe, where you go to put your book up and find that 99% of people, all these critique corners, a lot of these sites are dead. They got lots of material. But nobody ranks your work. Why? Because there's just so much. Okay, people can only read so much, only got so much time in the day. The reality is most writers are going to sell 200 books if they're lucky. Some writers, they'll pump out book after book after book. Well, how do they do it? You know how they do it. Not going to go into the myths and realities of what's really going on in the writing world. But you all seen the YouTube ads. That's all I'm going to say about it. If you haven't, you haven't. If you know, you know. Now, I did a thing on Write What You Know. The thing is, you have to know what you're writing about. But the problem is, there's a lot of people who tell you, well, if you ain't black, you can't write a black character. Well, how am I going to write a horror story? I'm not a serial killer or a demon or a life, a doll that comes to life. There are stupid people out there, and they can't seem to gravitate towards the middle, where there's some. I mean, we don't see black people saying, hey, we're not going to write white characters, or hey, we're not going to, abide by our own rules that we set for you. No, there's unfair competition out there, and they're gatekeepers, and they're trying to politicize writing, and there's a lot of writers who fall for this politicization. Come back to the middle, bro. Don't fall for this. Oh, yes, I'll write it. I'll write my books, put it all out there. And one day this big benefactor will come down from the sky, and Uncle Sam is going to give me money and give me fame, give me fortune. Yeah. We all know, okay, over the years, yes, it's happened to but a few. And we all know Stephen King hitched his trailer to politics, and look where it got him. We all, what's his name? Sulu, George Takei. He hitched his, after Star Trek, with nowhere to go, he hitched his trailer to politics. But J.K. Rowling, she hitched her trailer to politics. But there are millions who have tried the same thing and failed. So write what you know, but learn what you don't. You can write about any topic, any genre, but you have to write today's hottest genres. By the time you finish your book, yeah, certain genres do get red hot and draw in millions of viewers. Now and again, you'll see a fantasy novel hit the shelves and the media will report on it. But that's because the media are corrupt. It's all pay to win. George R.R. Martin, he's an insider and has been for 20 years. J.K. Rowling, she was an insider. She said the wrong thing and got kicked out, but she already made her money. Remember all those dystopian teen novels? They were written by screenwriters who worked for the BBC and got their free publicity off the BBC and got their novels becoming 50 Shades of Grey. The studio admitted they bought the studio admitted that, oh yes, they bought the novel. You know, all these middle-aged women who bought all the novels for Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey. Sure, they went to see the movies, but those movies bombed because those movies cost more than $100 million to make. They made $100 million, but they cost more than $100 million to make. Yeah, somebody's going to say to me, and then Twilight made money. Whatever. Yeah, there are idiots who buy. There are idiots who say, "Oh, your book's too expensive, Dave," and then go buy Twilight for $34 for a fucking measly half, not even half the size. But it's too late to write a similar story. Like Twilight wrote a vampire story way back, and 50 Shades of Grey was a fan fiction for it. Now, and again, if these people weren't insider script writers, they wouldn't have, the access that they had. But by the time you are starting to write, when the genre hits big, it's too late. By the time publishers have seen one vampire story, they've seen them all. They're just looking for something that stands out from the crowd today. If your publisher wants it, they want it. But however, if they want it, it does not mean your work is over. They will make you publicize. They will make you do book tours. They'll make you do interviews. And for the next year, they'll have you cut out characters, shorten your work to a certain publication length. They will tell you to meet certain beats and plot points. They will craft the work to fit their interpretation of writing. If you want to be published by Penguin, you have to study Penguin, look at the books they publish, and write the books to the same little books. It's the same with romance. It's the same with all these books, right? All these published works. The only ones who get away with big epics is fantasy. Sometimes sci-fi. Rarely can you write this is why people leave owning one book. So many big writers. Oh, I've got all these books. Yeah. Eventually your publisher will say, great book, write your script, write this, write that, right. They'll pour the work on and they'll start telling you to write sequels, and they overload you with work. Why? Because then comes the ghostwriters and the editors, and they drain the money back off you. Publicity. Oh, you can claim it all on your expenses. Oh, you got to go to LA. What do you mean? What do you mean you want a plane ticket? It's your career. You pay for it. There are days where, yes, if they really want it, they will pay for it. But 99% of publishing is to take money off the gullible. And that is the unfortunate reality, that if you fall for these self-publishing deals, they will keep trying to take you for thousands of dollars a year. And eventually, they'll have taken you for everything. So that upfront check, that may be your first and only check you'll ever get for your book. And heck, they'll promise you $495,000 for a movie deal. The fucking actor's going to get $20 million. They screw you. It's about time the writers told the Writers Guild to go fuck themselves. That's the reality. You'll have writers' guilds, you'll have all these organizations, you'll have lawyers and publicists and editors, all wanting thousands of dollars, translators, thousands of dollars. Everybody wanting more money than you can make. There are so many out there who are paying to win, and that's the problem. They're paying over and over and over again to the point, and you see it, and it's so sad because there's so many people with good books, but there are only so many books a person can read in a year. About 20, between 20 and 50. So you're only going to read at most 1,000. You're not going to read that much in your lifetime. There's more books published every year than people can read in their lifetime. The reality is very few people are going to make it, and even less over time. Now, I'm not saying stop publishing. I'm just saying don't go in expecting, because 99.999% in a pay-to-win industry, 99.99% going in aren't going to make it. You've seen, like, the Pulp Fiction paperback, the Penguin and little Penguin books. Those days are gone. The days of being able to write a novel or 20 novels and become an instant success, that's because there was no competition then. And these people settled in. And yeah, there's people who say, I've written 50 books since 2016. Yeah, right. I know how long it takes to write. And I know a lot of people out there, I get 50,000 words a month. Yeah, but who edited for you? Not everybody's as fast as you. Not everybody can write the same topics or the same. So everybody's different. But the reality is, even best-selling authors, most of their books, as you've seen with Stephen King, how many of these movies, and that's the problem, isn't it? The difference between it. See, when it's a fan, when we see this with Star Wars, when it's a fan, they're fanatics. They'll love it. They're going in loving it. Takes a long time to get disappointed. And with a lot of writers, Stephen King, again, the disappointment takes a long time before they walk away. Now, I've heard rumors that Stephen King is bankrupt. Nah, I don't believe it. I believe he was bailed out by Hollywood, but he's not bankrupt. He was bailed out, but that's because in 2016 book sales fell 70%. They're slowly recovering. Video games. A lot of people thought about video games. Again, so few video game writing jobs out there. Most of them go to insiders. That's the realities. That's the reality. It's the same with New York in publishing. People go to New York or London or the big cities thinking, well, they're full of schools for writing and all these other things, relying on the fact that people naively come to these schools or whatever. It's amazing how many people don't research anything. Oh, I want to write a topic. I want to write a book about medieval Japan. So they'll research it. But then they don't research publishing. They don't research whether or not the book there's a market for the book, or where the market is, or is they're going to contribute anything that hasn't been published before. And then, of course, they don't. Yeah. I mean, we see every so often, and medieval Japan just happens to be one of the many areas that every so often a book comes out, and it's the same as the last one. It's just got different art from a different museum because they're PhD students. Look at who writes this stuff. Professors. It's all publisher parish. They're flooding the market with books in every topic. I wish I could give you a path to success because I want to see more people successful. But the reality is there's too many people out there treating this as their second or third job. A lot of writers are journalists or dilettantes, or in today's market, lots of them are using AI and they're pumping out these AI books. There's nothing to stop them. There's no law broken. And the reality is a lot of writers are in reverse. They start off writing a book. They get out of college. They write a book. Find they can't make money, so they get a job. And unfortunately, the passionate writers, the ones who want to be a writer and get into writing, a lot of them end up losing their passion because to get a job as a writer, they end up as a script writer, and then because the people in because the writing guilds and the publishers say you got to earn your dues. Oh, you're good and a raw talent, but this isn't what we are looking for. Remember, you've got to deal with the bias of the publisher and you've got to deal with the reality is that I'm going to take an example. 2 different comic books. Spawn. McFarlane took the longer route. He took it to publishers and they wouldn't publish it. Or they said they'd publish it if he changed it. It was hard R for violence, and eventually he won out in the end and become successful. Now, the people who published Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it was originally hard R. They took the easy way out. And yes, they become a $15 billion franchise. Most of that money never went to the creators. And just like McFarlane, they went broke too. They've had their ups and downs. But then it became a dead franchise. And they had no work. Whereas McFarlane, because it was his work in his hands, he maintained his success. Yes, he had his ups and downs. Yes, people sued him. That's what happens when you become a success. People come after you. McFarlane made mistakes. Sometimes you look back in hindsight and goes, geez, why didn't you see this coming? But the thing is, people had agreements and he just got sick and tired of people not keeping their word. He didn't want to be locked into contracts where people would say, oh, but we have a contract. No, I have the toys. If your toy sells, I'll pay you. But if it doesn't sell, I'm not paying you. So many people in the writing industry also want an easy income. So they take that first check. I'm warning you now, most of the time, that first check is your last check, and they will come after you, whether it's the biggest publishers or the smallest publishers. They'll come after you to try and find ways to get it back off you, to use their translating, to pay for marketing, to do book tours. They will come after you because they're not there to help you. They're there to help themselves to your money. They're there to profit off you. And whether you're self-published or not, I mean, you're always going to have to be spending money. But you've got to be frugal and you've got to take care of your property. And for most of us, it's our baby, it's our childhood dreams, it's our hopes and aspirations. And even though the vast majority of us are not naive and will not expect to be an overnight success. We all hope for it. You have to admit that you hope for success. And I hope for a lot of more. I wish more people were successful. But the problem is the vast majority of people do not go past page 1. Amazon does not give everybody a chance. They give you, you're lucky to be there for 5 minutes. It doesn't rotate. It doesn't change. They're not fair. They're not honest. They're not your friend. They're there to take as much money off you as you can. And isn't it amazing that the largest publisher in the world is also the most expensive? It's ridiculous. But the vast majority of the public, knuckle draggers who won't go, who just take the easiest path. So we got no choice, have we? Until Amazon is where it rightfully belongs in the dustbin of history and put down, marked off as another corrupt organization, but they're going to just keep ripping us off. And that's the sad reality that we have to put up with. Because no government's protecting our rights. They're too busy taking money off Hollywood and big corporations. Sorry about the politics. But you want realities. But the myths can, occasionally have a little bit of grain of truth to them. Just don't expect. And I think, their biggest success, I think, is the fact that you wrote a book. You did something. Take pride in your achievements. Pride's only a sin when it controls you, when it blinds you, and when you think it's more important to protect your ego than it is to face reality. So face reality with pride that you have done something worthwhile and that perhaps it is just a matter of, yes, just because your friends and family like it doesn't mean the publisher will like it. But at the end of the day, the publishers aren't your friends. They aren't your family. They're not going to pay your bills. They're not going to help you out. They're only there to help themselves. So treat them at arm's length and never let them get too close to you, because they're only trying to get their hands in your pocket, and you'll be all right. You'll do okay. And in a world where doing okay is where most of us are at, well, most of you are at, I'm not doing okay, I'm sorry. And I'm sure some of you are not okay either. I'm sorry for you. If you're in my boat, well, I'm sorry for you. And I wish more of us, wish more people were successful. And by successful, I mean head above water and doing it okay. Yeah, I don't like the J.K. Rowling book deal. I don't like the book deal Martin got. Those were what they skewed. They're artificial. They're skewed. They were deliberately they were given billions in free advertising, whether it's Game of Thrones, Walking Dead. And I've spoken to enough people now to realize that they're not all that. And people are waking up to that now. It's just when people for the first time discover something new and fresh, but that's the problem. They were never new or fresh. They were just naive children who never actually read a book before and had this book thrust upon them. It's like all these women who never read anything before got Twilight and told it was good, and they joined the herd. Sad reality that fame does skew perception, But you don't have to be famous to be a writer. And try not to be famous to be a writer. So as you've seen, so many famous people, they get old. And the fame and the tours and the expectations. Not everybody has more than one book in them. Not everybody. Some people write a trilogy and that's it. I mean, that's why trilogy. I don't actually understand why it's said trilogies, but that's the way it is. You know, people have starting though. However, I mean, you look at The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That was 7 books, I think. I think it was Lord of the Rings, and then Star Wars, and I forget what else cemented the idea of a trilogy being the optimum for a franchise. But now, of course, you have manga, where you have 10, 20, 30, sometimes 70 books, all done in a lifetime, or 30 in a lifetime. You don't have to follow a mold. Walk your own path, be your own person, head high, and if you sit down 10 minutes a day and write a paragraph a day, or a week, or a month, if you complete a book, you don't have to complete a book to be a writer, but I think the difference between a writer and an author is the author's finished their first book. A writer can write anything. You're not restricted. I think that's the thing. Author a book. Thank you for listening. Appreciate each and every one of you and wish success upon each and every one of you. Now, of course, I hope that you'll support me and support my work and consider reading my books. The books are in my link tree, as well as all my other links. Please and thank you. And I'll see you in the next video.